YouTube says excellent connection, but I see no video yet.
And I noticed your background too, by the way, Jesse. That's pretty cool.
What was that?
It's got some animation that he's got on it. So
nice. What was that you were saying, Bobby?
I can see it now. It's on YouTube now.
Okay, it should be on Twitch.
Yeah, Twitch and YouTube, we're good.
Nice, I like it.
Okay.
You ready? Go for it.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Nintendo Dads, episode 284, recorded on June 11th, 2020. On tonight's episode, we have special guest Bobby Pauls, the Nintendo guru himself, the latest game announcements, and E3. Jesse, play that funky music.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to Nintendo Dads. I should actually probably call this PlayStation Dads, because that's probably where we're going to really sit in that pocket today. But ladies and gentlemen, my name's Justin Masson. I'm in the driver's seat of this hot garbage fire train wreck that is the Nintendo Dads podcast. But joining me in this dumpster fire is, of course, three of the coolest guys around the internet. First and foremost, the man, the myth, the legend, the most amazing podcast friend that I have, Timothy All. Timothy, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. I wasn't expecting that. You threw me off there, but actually, I'm not doing great. Actually, something disappointed me earlier today, or I'm bummed about, and that's there's no kids in our Discord community that is drawing my avatar. They're drawing all the other Nintendo Dads avatars, but mine. What happened?
Right, I saw that. That is so awesome. I was shocked when I saw that picture. I was like, this kid is drawing our avatars. Man, that is so awesome.
That's pretty cool. Yes,
that was so awesome. Cool. Yeah, I felt like I wanted a picture of myself on my own fridge that a kid drew. So that was weird.
Yeah.
Speaking of a person who will pose nude if you want for pictures, Jesse Waldack. Jesse, how are you today, sir?
I will.
I don't know. It's for the kids. That's not right. That's
so not right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we'd get banned from Mixer just for that statement. Let's.
I'm actually gonna undo this button one more just to see what happens. You know what I'm saying? Let's risk it. Let's see what happens. Let's go crazy.
The chest hairs and the mustache all together.
Right? Yeah. Jesse, you doing well?
Yeah. Well, except for the hour and 15 minutes this afternoon when I was watching some video that we'll talk about later.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm excited to hear your impressions of the latest podcast PlayStation stuff. I had something I was going with and it derailed. You could hear the train going off the track. Speaking of a man whose train never goes off the track, he pulls it into station every single week on Twitch, YouTube. One of my favorite people all around. Of course, I'm talking about Mr. Bobby Pauls, the Nintendo guru. Bobby, how are you today?
Glad you said me. I'm glad you said me and not Sean Capre. So
right?
Right? Because normally, the last time I was on here, you were having like little kissing faces and all that stupid stuff going on. So I'm glad that he's pushed aside and you're back to reality.
Well, I'm attracted to the mustaches. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just the way we're
Sean's
going.
in the chat wondering what did I do.
I don't even think Sean can grow a mustache. To be honest with you.
Well, probably just like takes like little cat hairs and super glues them on.
Well, I think he does, and he's got this 5 o'clock shadow all the time, but it's never. He can't get it fully grown in.
I heard that wasn't even 5 o'clock shadow. That was just soot. Like makeup soot.
I think
it's just like
because I was near him one time and like we hugged. I was gonna say kiss, but we hugged and I had like brown stuff on my face.
Yeah.
And then like
got all over you.
Beard was missing. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
it happens.
I totally get that. Bobby, we're excited to have you here.
Thank you.
We're gonna obviously talk about all the amazing things that you're doing. Well, you're a familiar face to this podcast, so not probably a lot of people know you or need to know more about you. But we're gonna give that space later because there's some amazing things that you're doing that we need to make sure we direct people to as well, guys. Like I did say, or as Tim kind of talked about as well, it's a little bit of a slow news week, so we are going to kind of let our conversation wander where it will. I'm very excited. But of course, we have got our chat here. We've got YouTube. We've got Twitch. So guys, join us in that conversation. as well. We're excited to do that. But of course, let's jump right into the news. Mr. Timothy Off, who's our news brought to us by today?
7-Eleven for the Slurpees.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Good plug. By the way, this stream is, can we put a banner? Hashtag sponsored by 7-Eleven. Hashtag not sponsored by 7-Eleven. Hashtag probably won't be. Hashtag I ate a taquito and I don't feel good. Right? Uh-oh. So let's see what happens. So who's it actually supported by?
By our Patreons, of course.
Excellent. Of course, over on patreon.com/NintendoDads. And I want to give a huge shout out to Robert Kent, Paul D, and Frankie P, who have joined us over on patreon.com/NintendoDads. 120 Patreons supporters every single month. Guys, we are so thankful for you there. Some amazing things going on in our community. Man, sometimes I'm just so impressed by the love of our community. I had someone reach out to me privately, said, I have been having some really tough times, and your community is keeping me going. And so that was pretty special. So guys, wherever you are, whatever you do, and I hopefully you are well, you are safe, and you're minding each other, right? Mind yourself, mind each other, care for each other. But guys, that is it. We're going to jump right into the news. As I mentioned, it's a slow Nintendo news day or news week. I am not going to lie to you. However, we have some things I do want to talk about here. It's kind of supposed to be E3 week, right? Let's take a moment, sit there and think about this. Last year this time, we were still high on the moon. We had got Banjo-Kazooie announced for Smash Brothers, and we had seen Breath of the Wild 2 trailer. Nintendo kind of walked out, dropped their mic, and said, we've won E3, have a good day. And here we are now, 365 days later, and it is quiet. Right? Pandemic occurred, we're not at E3. Jesse was literally supposed to be there this week. He had his flights booked, he had his media badge, he had his hotel room paid for. So we're kind of lamenting a little bit of that. We wish we were there, but of course it is kind of E3 weekend. We're getting bits and bobs of information across various platforms. So we've had some sort of directs, right? Guerrilla Collective has got theirs coming up very soon. Today was obviously PlayStation's event. IGN has got their stuff going on. Jeff Keighley's got his stuff. Jeff Grubbs has got content going on. I just want to sit in this pocket and talk about, how are you guys doing with this mix mash kind of smorgasbord, I guess, or buffet style E3 event that we're having across the platforms? Bobby, how do you think this is going with you?
Bad. It's very bad for me. I don't feel like this is E3 at all. Obviously it's not E3, but it just feels so out of sorts. Dude, I think everybody normally has time off. By the way, can we seriously? Why is Jesse getting a free pass with this? You killed E3. The minute that you got announced to go there, everything fell apart in the world. So no,
it was literally the week afterwards. We were like, congratulations, we're going. We're very excited. Yay, community. Next week, we're not going. It's got canceled.
But business cards printed and everything.
Yeah, business card printed.
See? Jesse, next year you do not go to E3. I don't care if they're you are going to actually go sit with Doug Bowser and present the next Nintendo game. You go, sorry guys, I can't go. We can't do it.
That's exactly
it. But no, it just feels very out of sorts for a lot of people, I think, and because this is the time where most of us take off of work, especially for me. Every year I stream.
the chat's now going #blame Jesse.
Yeah, that's fair.
They're with me. They know the deal. But it's so weird that we're not taking off of work, we're not live streaming, we're not doing anything, and it's the weirder thing is all these other companies seem to be still trying to do something, and Nintendo's doing nothing, and it's what is happening? So for me, it's very melancholy. I'm not very happy right now with it all.
Yeah, and that's a great point, right? I think as we typically do our planning, right? We would have had either Roger or you or some of our other really common friends in our community come and join us middle of May, end of May, and start saying, "Oh, E3 predictions," right? And we'd jump on and we'd stream them together, right? And we'd have predictions, and then, man, Bobby, I'm over on your show, and you're over on ours, and we're over with and it feels, and despite not being an event that we're going to, we feel very attached and in that moment, right? Like you
Yeah.
feel like it's about experiencing that together as a community, both yourself and as the broader one as well. And I would tend to agree with you. Like I feel very disjointed. And the thing that I feel is I feel disconnected from information. And what I mean by that is not that like there's a lack of information, because there really is, right? Like, oh, it's Jeff Keighley's thing. It's just, but when I think of E3, this sounds funny, I know where I need to watch.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is I know that I'm going to pay attention to Ubisoft, and I know that I'm going to pay attention to, if they've got an indie platform thing, I'm going to, the Kind of Funny showcase, I'm going to watch that. Maybe I might hang out and watch a little bit of EA, but I'm probably not going to hang out at Bethesda stuff. I'm probably not going to watch Xbox. I'm not going to watch Sony. But then I'm going to watch Nintendo, right? Because I knew where I needed to watch. But now I don't know. I feel like I need to watch everywhere, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, I watched everything. Yeah. E3 I streamed every event, didn't matter. Like me and Sean would do Xbox, stuff like that. Like we would, we get in groups. So I get in groups of pockets and be like, hey, you and I, like me and Badman, I think did Sony last year or whatever. Yeah. And Sean was at E3 last year, so I didn't do really anything with him. I think I did Xbox with Badbit. I went up doing Bethesda and stuff like, and I loved it because it was just like a way for me to actually just see what everybody was doing, and a way to like you get to know this is the chart course for every company that's coming out, and now it just feels like we don't know what the heck's going on, and like I'll be honest with you, like I expected more out of Keighley when he first announced he was going to be doing something, and it really just feels disjointed what he's doing. One day he's doing stuff, the next day, is
kind of sounds like he's taking credit for everyone else's show, and he's just kind of pretending it's all his idea.
Exactly.
Well, I kind of feel like Jeff Keighley just made like the largest Google Calendar ever and just shared it. Do you know what I mean? Like that was like what I appreciate about Jeff is that like I don't feel like he's trying to take credit. I feel like he's like, there's a lot of threads out here, and I'm going to try and pull it into at least one spot where kind of where to watch. But like what I mean by that, like, so great example today, IGN was doing their summer stuff, right? And I kind of watched a little bit of the beginning. I was like, nothing I'm really super interested in. And then right before the PlayStation event, I jump in and I see this like really cool looking game. I was like, holy cow, what is this? This looks awesome. Turns out it's Spellbound, by the way, which by the way is coming to the Nintendo Switch. Oh, this now has my attention, right? Now I'm interested. But had I not just kind of been jumping back into that to watch that, I wouldn't have known. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like that would have been part of a Nintendo Direct, right? A hot sizzle reel. Boom, there you go. These are the 25 games we've got coming here. It's just mentioned, but you knew. But now I feel like I'm literally like combing through, hoping that I get a press release about something. Maybe I see a tweet about something. Like I just feel very disjointed in and I think maybe I'm just being very selfish because I'm looking for a very specific window, which is Nintendo related content, right? So I don't know. Tim, what are you thinking?
I'm lost with this because I've been so used to having something to look forward to coming up. And like you said, like E3 would announce when they were having their conferences, or people who were going to make a conference around E3 would do that. You knew what to expect. You knew what to look forward. Like you said, Justin, just to say, hey, I know I want to watch A, B, and C. I don't need to watch X, Y, Z. I can add this to my calendar. I don't need to do this. I think that's what they were trying to do, but then it became all discombobulated when it first was IGN, then Jeff Keighley, and then the other ones you mentioned, just all these different ones doing all their different shows, but it's not under one umbrella. It's all lost, and I'm like, it's hard to. E3 was already hard to keep up, and that was all under one umbrella, and so now it's all under all these different umbrellas, and now it's even harder to keep up on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took the week off from work just like I normally would have anyway. Even if I wasn't going, I would normally still take the week off so I can say I am focusing on E3 content and absorb everything I can absorb. But literally today was the first day of any information. So I feel like I just lost a week.
Yeah. I thought to me, the thing that didn't make any sense was why people still didn't do anything at all. I'm surprised Xbox didn't do anything. Like, it's real strange to me because and especially Nintendo. I think Nintendo, of all of them, kind of upsets me a little bit. It's because, dude, you are the master of the digital events. You've been doing these, you've been mastering them and doing them for so long. To do nothing at all just makes no sense whatsoever. And I mean, we've heard rumors like the past couple of weeks that like they basically told all third parties and indie teams like if you're going to make announcements, go ahead and make them on your own because we're not doing anything. And it's like it's just weird. It's even weird for Nintendo, to some degree. I feel to just shut off all communication whatsoever except for tweets now and again.
Yeah, and I think all of us, like every fan, whether it's PlayStation or Xbox, always looks at E3 as kind of that like Christmas. Do you know what I mean? Like that's like, man, we're looking forward to it, right?
Yeah.
And Nintendo has had some bangers, right? Especially as they transitioned into the Switch, right? And I think it was just this week, like a Tuesday. I was like, I just really miss that excitement around it, right? I miss like Bobby, like what do you think's going to be there? Let's talk about it, right? And it's like high hopes, high expectations, not grounded in reality, but just a lot of fun. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes you're right, and sometimes you're wrong, but yet it just feels void.
You know something? And I think this needs to be recognized. I think every single person on the internet that talk crap about E3, that it's a garbage event and all this stuff, they need to realize what's going on right now and go, you know what? We're going to shut up. We're going to support E3 and be happy with what they give us and what happens. Because at the end of the day, this is not what we want. We've been very fortunate to be able to like take the week off and enjoy the week and get all this stuff that comes in. And how many times do we get this thing where you see it on Twitter where people are talking trash about E3 and they should shut it down and this and man, what are you even talking about? Is this what you want? You want nothing? Because I feel like E3 was always like the bookmark for the second half of the year, what was going to happen,
right?
Especially for Nintendo, So
I do think though, like, is it that I don't know? Is it that we want E3 to happen, or is it that we want a Nintendo Direct? Do you know what I mean? Or like, they're okay with like if it like for some reason it goes in like some virtualized format, right? Like if E3, the company behind E3, the planners came out and said, "Sure, look at guys, we're still doing E3, but it is going to be digital.
Yeah,
but it's going to be the exact same, but it's just digital." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, would that be okay? Yeah, I'd be okay with that because that doesn't change my experience, right? But at least I know kind of like it's this week, right? Yeah. It's this week. These are things, and I know where I need to look.
Yeah.
Because I also feel very much it's kind of like, well, who's swooping up what in relation to rolling it out, right? Like, so we've got the Guerrilla Collective presentations coming up this weekend, starting, I believe it's actually tomorrow. I think I could be wrong. Starting tomorrow,
the 13th,
right? 13. Okay, and that's ran by in coordination with the team over Kind of Funny, and then we've got IGN who's doing their thing, and then they're revealing games. So I'm like, who's exclusive? Who's got? Do you know what I mean? And it's like,
and the Guerrilla Collective is a 3-day thing from Sunday to Monday, but don't know what time.
Yep.
I actually tried to reach out to them asking for more specific times, and I never heard it back. So who knows what that means? Is this going to be a slow trickle all weekend, or is it going to be a big 2-hour video somewhere? We don't know.
Yeah, it's a little, and then yeah. So it just feels a little bit disjointed, I guess.
No, it is absolutely, and it's weird because I wouldn't see. Here's the thing for me is I feel like the media has crapped all over E3 for the past. Well, when they let fans come in. Mm-hmm. Let's go back even further. The minute Nintendo started doing the directs, the digital events, they had to complain about every single thing that was coming out of there. And it's like then when they allowed fans come in, that's all you heard was complaints. And I'm like, let's just like take the fans out of the equation then. Do something where it's a gigantic digital event where they give us demos that we can play at home and all that stuff. Like kind of like I was saying this to Toby the other day. It's kind of like I would do it kind of like how BlizzCon does it, where you can buy these packages, these digital event packages. If you want to go, you go.
Or have E3 it'd be an industry event only again, like it was supposed to be.
Have it be an industry event, but also do digital events where fans can get free swag, like exclusive swag that you can't get anyplace else. Get demos that you can't get, or whatever. Like Nintendo makes you go to the Best Buy or something like that to get these demos. Like do them where they come right to your house, and you sign up for it, you pay an X amount of dollars, and you can play demos of games.
Timothy, I recognize your raising hand motif here. Yes, you in the back row, sir.
Being from Detroit, we have, the auto show. And the auto show, what they do is they usually do an industry event first. And I know E3's tried that or does that a little bit. But what they do is they do industry only, where the industry comes out. They do press conferences about the cars that are coming out. They do industry only press and all that, showing off the cars on the auto show floor. And then after they've done 3 or 4 days of that, then it's the public that gets to come and look at the cars.
That would be awesome.
And all that stuff after the industry is done doing what they needed to do.
Gamescom did that the year I went, and I think that's what they typically do, because I was just based on my schedule, I was traveling, and I think it was like on Thursday, and I remember like Nintendo was there, Pear from IGN, and so I was DMing them. I was like, "You guys are Gamescom?" They're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Can I meet up with you?" Like, "Absolutely." I was like, "This is awesome." So I'm like coming over, and I landed. I was like, "Cool. So where are you guys?" He's like, "Oh, we left yesterday." And I was like, "What do you mean you left yesterday?" He's like, "Yeah, we were just here for like the majority of our team was only here for like the press event stuff, and then we headed off and left like a couple guys behind." And I was like, "Son of a gun!" Like I literally missed them by basically a day. But yeah, that was their strategy. The strategy was first couple days was very much the press events, very much the media, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the doors were wide open for public, right? And I came in on that, and because
that formula I think would work the best in this situation. That way you're separating out the media from the public.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I think the original plans for E3 this year was like the first 2 hours on Tuesday would have been media only, and then the public come in at noon or whatever time that happens to be at, and then I think Wednesday and Thursday was just FFA. So like, good luck for getting anything done those days.
Yeah.
The other thing I like about the auto shows too is that it's not just in one location. So they have them all over the country, and even all over the world in most cases. But one thing I thought of that they could do is do just media in LA there, and then do hotspots across the country type of thing, maybe in coordination with PAX and some of those other events, to say, okay, the things that we did here, now we'll make it public at these other events across the country so that more people can see these things that you're announcing.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see, and I know that PAX West is still, I believe, and maybe chat, keep me honest. Again, thank you so much, everyone who's here in our YouTube chat, in our Twitch chat, guys. A little bit of hashtag keep Justin honest. PAX West, I believe, is still on docket as going. Like, they have not canceled that yet. They have not said they're going virtual. I believe it is still open to public. I believe they're not changing that. And predictively, I think the way things are shifting, we may still be in the situation where it may actually occur potentially here. I think it's beginning of September, so it's very interesting, and that may be very interesting to see if that's our first kind of, again, gaming event. What's that going to be like? Right now, obviously, there's COVID. There's so many protocols, procedures, processes now, but it'd be interesting to see, like, with the absence of E3, does that become so like a bigger hotbed, I guess, for people to be like, I definitely want to go there. I definitely want to be engaged as well.
Looks like PAX West is still on schedule for September 4th through 7th. So like Labor Day weekend.
I will stab you, Bobby Pauls. I see what you're doing in my chat right now. All right?
I'm just laughing at Sean's having a conversation with himself.
No one else talking to Sean Caprice. He's talking to himself. Thank you guys again so much for being here. This is Justin's stash is so distracting. Thank you. It's my Ron Swanson. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. First, guys, speaking of, if maybe you missed information, maybe things slipped through the cracks, and that's why you're here, is to say, surely the Nintendo dads have pulled together all the Nintendo news and game announcements that I need to know. Maybe? I don't know. Possibly. We may have missed some things, but I do want to throw a couple games your way that have been announced this week to make sure you're aware of it. Spellbreaker. This was actually announced today on IGN. This is a battle royale. It looks like MOBA. It looks a little bit like Valorant at times. Mage wizard game. I'm going to be straight out honest. It looks real cool. And for a person who's kind of into those kind of like battle royale games, this definitely has my attention. Check out Spellbreaker. It is currently, I believe, it's on PlayStation and on Steam or PC, coming to Xbox as well as Nintendo Switch. So take a look at that one if you want. Transformers Battlegrounds gets announced with a release date of October 23rd, 2020. If you're like, wow, does that sound cool? I will tell you it is very much targeted at children. No judging, just telling you it's targeted at children for sure.
Yeah, I put that on for Marty in case he was on tonight. But
Sure, yeah, that's okay. but yeah, no, that's all right. Next one is Crosscode. This is going to be released digitally on July 9th, 2020, with a physical release on August 28th. And each console will actually have exclusive quests with its own dungeon and boss fight. Crosscode kind of looks like it's like a 16-bit game. We saw some previews for this a while ago. It's got like Super NES vibes to it. I'm definitely very interested in. I think it'll be pretty cool as well. And what else do we have here? Namco's Museum Archives Volume 1 and 2 scheduled to release on June 18th. That's going to include a lot of games. I'm not going to go through all those games, but there's a lot of them. If you need to look at that, you can do that. We're not going to do that. All right.
And the previous Namco Museum collection seemed to be a bunch of arcade ports. This one seems to be a bunch of NES version ports. So like they have like both, like the last one did have Dig Dug, did have Pac-Man. This one does too, but it's definitely not the arcade version. So I'm presuming it's the NES port. So put that into a little bit of perspective. I'm not sure what the pricing on that will be. Yep,
that's fair. Bobby, any of these games interest you, or anything that I have missed that you've come up with? No,
nothing.
It's not Animal Crossing. You don't give a damn.
I don't care. Animal Crossing for life, baby. That's it. That's all I know.
All right. That's all you know. That's all you know. I like it. All right, folks. Well, literally, did we miss anything else for the news?
No.
Obviously, E3 or not E3, EA got bumped into next week, so we're going to be doing that live stream. Jeff Grubb was here last week, talked about the E3 content. If you guys haven't listened to our episode with Jeff or watch it, I'd recommend you doing that. Such a cool guy, really cool insight, and he's been doing quite well, I think, in the industry to kind of predict things. So take a watch. Next week we will be doing a live reacts to EA. What's up, Bobby?
They're just saying Nintendo brand ambassador program news.
Yeah, you guys want to talk about that? Nintendo brand ambassador. Let's jump in because none of us are, so we're not going to get punched in the face.
Future.
Well, I don't think so, because I don't think it's going to exist in the same way, right? So
I think this might affect Roger.
Did they actually shut it down?
So let's talk a little bit about. Let's break this down, right? So first and foremost, here's what we know to be true, and here's what we know to, I don't know. Nintendo Brand Ambassador Program is a program that is exclusively to the U.S. It is not offered or ran by Nintendo of Canada or Nintendo of Europe.
Yeah.
And essentially, it is to become a brand ambassador. I don't really know what you need to do, but you do need to have a pretty positive faring on Nintendo. And I would say a pretty fair, but it's not necessarily associated with likes or subs or that kind of stuff.
That's not necessarily true. That's not necessarily true.
Okay.
So, in conversations with brand ambassadors, fairly recently, it's a conglomerate of things. They do look at your community. They look at your sub counts, but also what your videos are doing. They also look at like the number of people, like depending on what you're about. So they also want to look at, like, you could have 50,000 subscribers on YouTube, but 100 followers on Twitch, or on Twitter. They look at that and they go, well, that doesn't jive. So that's not going to work. So they've kind of changed the way they want things now. It's kind of across the board. Also, they've kind of moved into they invite you rather than you apply. That's kind of disappeared as a recent time.
So why are we bringing this up?
I was wondering the same thing.
Okay. So recently, this was like dramatic pause. So recently, some of the brand ambassadors have gotten letters saying that they are no longer in the program. And the one that kind of most came up to the head of it would be Woods Beat 'em Up, right? It's Woods Beat 'em Up, yeah. And he got a letter from Nintendo essentially saying, you're not in the program anymore. Now, interestingly enough, what are the benefits to the program? Let's talk a little bit about that. Bobby, do you know what the benefits are?
I mean, the only thing you really get is so it depends on when you're part of it. So if we go back and you look at brand ambassadors pre-Switch, they all got Switches. They got first hand on exclusive things. Sometimes they get featured in commercials. Sometimes they get sent to press only events that are basically brand ambassador events. Like Luigi's Mansion had they created this huge haunted mansion and brought in like all the brand ambassadors from the United States. And and they'll give you games and stuff like that. Like you'll get these care packages that just show up randomly with all kinds of games in it and all that stuff. So also, like, I know for a fact that like when was it Luigi's Mansion? I think it was Luigi's Mansion. They actually bought time for Miss Click and put her on the main page of Twitch. So when you went to Twitch between a certain hour time, she was featured on the main page for everybody to see. So they sponsored that and stuff like that. So there is some advantages to it. That's essentially.
And I like Patrick here from obviously Nintendo Talk says free games and invite event invites. The games are free that usually are released on the same day, or usually come out on the same day as release, and not much value there as well.
Yeah.
So they're changing this program. A couple of the ambassadors were basically told, "Hey, sure, thanks very much, but we're not going to continue with you. We're having a new program." So,
but it was also not from Nintendo. It was from the PR company that told them that, not Nintendo. So it's not like Nintendo reached out to these brand ambassadors and were like, "You're no longer
on behalf of Nintendo."
Yeah, but it's on behalf of Nintendo. It's not necessarily Nintendo going like, "Hey, you're not part of this anymore."
Yeah, and that's the thing I would say for Nintendo for the most part, right? And so just as a reference point, like we have worked with Nintendo of Canada, we've had a slight conversation with Nintendo of America and Nintendo of Europe, and most of them use a vendor, right? A PR company or a vendor to do most of their communication with press and with influencers. So it's kind of like on behalf of Nintendo is part of their contract as well.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you guys had watched the video from where he breaks it all down and stuff. And again, private conversations that I had with brand ambassadors, he's acting like he's not sure why he got dropped. And I totally can see why he got dropped. And it was because he was showing off modded consoles and stuff like that. Like he did. They are so against that. It's not even funny. So if you're doing stuff where you're modding consoles or modding Nintendo stuff or showing people how to get free games, Nintendo games, you're goodbye. It's done. And literally that is the last video that he did and then gets the letter. But he acts like, well, they said it wasn't because of my content. You were talking to a PR firm that probably were trying to avoid themselves legally from getting in trouble. But from my conversations with brand ambassadors privately, that is an absolute no-no to do. So, and not on top, and on top of that, here's the thing. He got dropped. Like he's in Australia. He's in the Nintendo Australia brand ambassador thing.
I think he's in the U.S.
No, he's not. He's Australian.
I know he's Australian, but I thought he was located in the U.S.
No, he's not.
Oh.
He was a brand ambassador for Nintendo Australia. So it's totally different animals. You know what I mean? It's like you're all like it's the people that are, you know, like Nintendo reaches out and does stuff because he even said it wasn't Nintendo America. Like it had nothing to do with Nintendo of America. It was Nintendo Australia. So that could be just that territory restructuring things and changing things. So that's the other thing that we're not 100% sure on.
Now I'm gonna flip that coin a little bit here. I'll be writing a show. I'm gonna tell you the devil's advocate of that. We've had on our show before Mr. Vatka, and for those of you that don't know who Mr. Vatka is, he is a he is an elementary principal who absolutely loves Nintendo, and he was made a Nintendo brand ambassador about a year and a half ago. And on June 5th, he sent a reply to Woods Beat 'em Up and said, hey, I want to let you know that it isn't he isn't the only one that got the email from Nintendo of America. I just received the exact same letter and can prove it to him. Now, if there is anyone who is completely child friendly, not putting out probably content that would go against it, it would be Mr. Vadka. The guy has his own Nintendo club, and his statement is hard work, hard play. He is a director of instructional development. Teaches. He's like just a huge advocate for Nintendo.
Yeah.
Lot of like Labo stuff. So I don't necessarily think it is content related. I believe there may be a restructure, right? And talking. And I love Mr. Vadka's statement. He's like, sure, look at it. Business is business, and he's like, I'm not personally hurt by it, right? Like things happen. So yeah.
I mean, in a conversation with Roger, this isn't the first time they've restructured. You know what I mean? Like, and they've restructured numerous times. They've changed the program numerous times over the course. And I think it's more, and it could could also be a product of the times. You know, I think he tried to balance it as in watching Wood, he tries to balance it out as, well, I got too big. And I don't know if that's necessarily true or not. Like, because they had some pretty big brand ambassadors. It's not like, he might have had the most subscribers ultimately than anybody else. But like, I mean, dude, they had like a lot of big, like they had iJustine for a while as a brand ambassador. So I don't necessarily see that as being the case. I just think that they look at it and go, okay, we've kind of gotten what we can out of you. Let's look at, I think they want to focus more on what's hot. You know what I mean? Like who's taking off at the moment. That's who we want to push our content to and help those people, because it helps us. Like if you want to go with the hotness at the moment, not, you know what I mean? Like, so I expect Pat from Nintendo to get it any day now. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if they readjust it or if this is part of the larger conversation. Now, I do want to call it here, Adam, in our chat. Adam, obviously, who was on our show a couple weeks ago. He says that's kind of basically what it's been like up here in Canada as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we don't have that kind of same relationship. It's, kind of like what they're getting now, which is, hey, I might get a code maybe before, maybe not. I may get it the day of. I may actually get it several days afterwards.
Yeah.
As either press or as influencers. That's kind of what a lot of us are dealing with, right? And I've been pretty upfront about the statement of like when we work with Nintendo of Canada or Nintendo of Europe, as we have in the past, you never really know what you're going to get, right? Yeah. Sometimes like we've had, we've been fortunate enough to get access to Luigi's Mansion 2 weeks early and get content prepped. And other times it's like, hey, Shulika, this game comes out tomorrow. Enjoy. Good luck to you. And other times we'll communicate and they'll say, I ain't got nothing for you.
I mean,
okay, it is what it is.
So I guess the closest I've been was Image and Forum, right? I'm a Steam World ambassador for Image and Forum. So at one point, like, I wanted to be a part of the conversations, and I believe it was Dig 2 where everybody got it before me. And I was like, I went to them and I'm like, guys, listen, I appreciate being a part of the ambassadorship and getting the game for free or whatever. But like, I want to be part of the conversation in terms of like reviewing and doing all that stuff. Like, if I'm not going to get the stuff free, then let me drop out of that and go join in and get the stuff when everybody else got it. And then they restructured and they were like, you know what? You're absolutely right. Our brand ambassadors will now get it first, because, we were considered like the biggest cheerleaders. And so they changed it. But I don't think you're going to talk to a Nintendo and be like, "Hey, man, why are you giving it to Game Explain first, and why not?"
Yeah, for sure. Right,
they're media. We're going to give it to media first.
And I want to be very clear on this before. I mean, we're just very fortunate that we get to spend some time and work with these companies. We have no expectation of them, but we've definitely seen Nintendo shift before in kind of their strategy of how they're working with their influencers or with press as well. I think it's very interesting. I think in this time when Nintendo is kind of shifting their communications a little bit, right, when we haven't heard a lot from them publicly, and then to kind of make some of these changes, it's very interesting to see what's going on. And maybe this is part of their larger strategy at play as well, to move away from or make some substantial changes in that space. Bless me. I'm so sorry. I did not get that mute button fast enough. I was like, no. Tim, what's your thought?
Eat a kid.
Bless you.
Oh, I need to have my juice box.
I'm kidding.
So I watched the Wood video too, and for whatever reason, the biggest thing that I could tell that was that it did impact him. It did hurt him or disappoint him. At first, he was like, "Oh, I'm all right, I'm all right," but then towards the end, I think he was just like, "I'm disappointed" or "I'm hurt," So, but and he also pointed out why, and that was if he had told his 10-year-old self that he was going to be a Nintendo ambassador, his 10-year-old self would have just blown up. So, and because that inner 10-year-old got the message that you're no longer a partner with Nintendo, that hurt. So, and I can only imagine that, because would I love to be a Nintendo ambassador for the Nintendo dads? If the Nintendo dads were, absolutely, that would be so cool. Because that my inner 10-year-old kid self would be like, that's freaking awesome. But at the same time, it's probably going to be more stressful too, because this is not our day job, right? So, and maybe not so much for some people, but how you handle that type of stuff. But you if Nintendo comes a knocking, you want to make sure you're doing right by that. So yeah, I can understand there's some stresses with that.
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead.
I was just say overall, I could see too where the numbers could impact. It depends on what Nintendo's going to do with that. Where if Wood has so many followers and they want to go to niche people who do specific things and reach out to certain people, then maybe that's where they're going with it. But it's going to be interesting to see where they actually go with it.
The one thing that he references towards the end of one of the videos, I think does make a lot of sense in terms of like they have to be careful now in terms of like in this world that we live in now with the whole cancel culture and stuff. If something was to come out that somebody tweeted something wrong 5 years ago,
oh yeah, he's mentioned the Subway guy.
Yeah, like it's seriously, like you could Nintendo could literally lose everything they build.
I have a current example of that. Person. The guy who plays Elongated Man on Flash, he's gone.
Yeah, they fired him because of tweets that he did 3-4 years ago or whatever. Right. I mean, James Gunn, same thing. James Gunn got fired from Guardians of the Galaxy, but only to get like people to be like, it becomes this whole thing that Nintendo I don't think wants to be a part of. Yeah. So, I think it's one of these things of like, hey, if we latch on to smaller people, it's less likely for something like that to happen. Yeah. Well, because you think about it, like nobody's going to go digging on a small YouTuber, but when you get someone as big as Beat 'em Ups is, that channel, it's a situation where there's a lot of people that are like, hey man, we want to take a notch out of his belt. Let's go after him, So
I mean, let's be very honest with you. That's also one of the reasons why I fear that picture of me with my shirt off during the gift doing that. It's just going to come back and haunt us one day. You know what I'm saying? You know exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly it. I also, and I want to take a comment here that I thought just came up, and I'm getting DM'd by someone, and they're saying this really great comment, and I want to say this, and it's interestingly enough when you think about this, Nintendo games really sell themselves. Yeah. Right, they really don't need people to champion for them. No. Right, what they need, right, and here's a little bit of the honesty about it. So when we were, and I'll play devil's advocate of this. When we were on the Wii U, we were getting a lot more frequent communication with Nintendo. We were getting a lot more games earlier. Right, we were kind of like in that conversation. When it came to the Switch, everybody and their dog jumped on the Switch. The Switch is selling like hotcakes. You don't need a small little YouTube podcast to try and bang that drum the same way, right? And I think that's really like, again, Nintendo games are selling themselves, and so I think that really what you're looking for, as opposed to someone being like, wave the flag, man, this game's awesome, you guys should check it out, blah blah blah. The influencer part is probably more importantly is the actual like review score, right? So, hey, this is why sites, this is why press releasers are getting them earlier. That's where we're going to, where if I've got so many things, where am I going to spend my time? Get it over to Meta, get it over to IGN, get it over to whoever. What's the score you give it, right? And I think that's a really important thing. So I think more and more websites that provide scores or reviews, I think will have that power or that access more than the influencer in the same way. And I think that, yeah, sure, look at, you have 1 million subs, that's great. I do think there's a spot for you, but I think what happens is the smaller content creators may kind of fall off the wayside. Yeah. And again, I want to be very clear here. I'm not saying this. This is a bit of a conversation I'm having with with Adam in the background as well, a friend of the show as well, and he just makes some really good points about again, Nintendo doesn't need to really
right
promote.
now.
Right now.
Right now, yeah. And I think that's what they learned during the Wii. Like people are saying, like, well, during the Wii U, they did it. But that's what they learned during the Wii U.
Yep.
Like that was when the brand ambassador stuff was starting. And I think that's what they learned was you get these like grassroots things started with the brand ambassadors. And I think that's what Nintendo needs to keep an eye on is we keep the brand ambassadors around just because of the fact of it keeps that stuff going. Now, is it a situation where they feel like we don't need it? But there's a lot of other people that we know that are brand ambassadors that haven't lost it. So it's not, I don't believe it's going anywhere. It's just a matter of,
Yeah. It's interesting to see, right? And again, here's the challenge, I think, right? And this is going to put on my business cap for a second. Justin, business person conversation. Here's my piece of advice for anyone. In a lack of information or lack of communication, your audience will make up your own narrative.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is if you don't own your messaging or you don't tell them what's going on, you're not transparent about what's going on, people will begin to make their own assumptions based on rumor, based on speculation, based on what they want it to be, and they begin to create a story and a narrative, which is incredibly hard for you to change or to adjust. And I think that is a little bit of a challenge, right? So, I mean, you've definitely got, Woods out here kind of providing his own perspective. I think you've had some other people. Now, Nintendo's not going to come out flat out and be like, here's what we're doing and make a big broadcast, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't correct the ship, right, it just kind of begins to spin out of control. And I think that's something that would have to.
But let's be fair about something here. And this is something that I don't even understand why he did the video. He says in the video that they had told him nothing was going to change in terms of getting games. He just wasn't allowed to use the title brand ambassador no more. Yeah. So it wasn't like they were getting rid of him in terms of he was still supposed to. I don't think he's going to get it now. I think he's totally burned that bridge because the minute you go out and start talking like the way he did, you lose it all. But he didn't have to do that video.
Yeah,
he could have quietly just removed the brand ambassador stuff off his Twitter and all that stuff and just let it go. Still got the games, and nothing would have happened. You know what I mean? It would have just went business as usual. So I think a part of that was, hey, I could do a video that says that like I'm no longer working with Nintendo, and like, boom. Because let's be honest, the reason I clicked it first, I was like, wait a minute, what happened? Why is he not doing Nintendo content anymore? And then it's like, no, I'm still going to do Nintendo content. It's just that they're not going to give me free stuff anymore.
Yeah, and yet ironically, then he got free stuff from them. Right afterwards, I kind of feel like sending messages like, welcome to like what some of the rest of us are kind of going through.
Yeah,
like that's like literally like what you're describing is kind of what we do every single time we communicate with Nintendo. Is like, maybe, and then like 2 days later, do you want a code for BioShock? And you're like, I don't, sure.
Or when the big people do things like that, it also hurts the little people. Yep. Like when the leaks happened and they put a really crunch down on any review copies for 6 months, that hurt us.
Yep. All right, folks, we have talked enough about that. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to get into this really thick conversation that typically doesn't happen on a really slow news week for Nintendo. Ladies and gentlemen, PS5 got announced today. We
nice seeing you guys. I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.
Yeah, I don't want to tarnish that Nintendo Guru brand back there, right? PlayStation Guru is what's going to happen. I do want to sit in this pocket really just because I think as pundits, I guess is the word I'm going to call us, talking heads. Not only do we obviously cover Nintendo, but I think we are students of the industry, and I would like to just sit and chat a little bit about, and I think maybe it's because I was just like craving, like I was having a hard craving for some E3 news, so I sat there and watched the Sony press event. But guys, PS5 comes out today, shabam, drops the mic. What did you guys think of this event? And I don't want to go through like every single piece of it, but like any thoughts, any hot topics, hot impressions?
I mean, dude, honestly, I felt like it was a waste of time. All they showed was games. And I get that that's what we're about there, but like I was expecting some type of release date, some type of price point. Like, we got to see the console. That's awesome. But they're showing games that are coming out in 2022.
Okay.
And,
Well,
and
they said it was going to be about the games, and
I get that.
I'm
I
not
get that, but-
surprised we didn't get a price point. I'm not surprised we didn't get a date. I am surprised we even saw the console. I wasn't even expecting that.
Well, as the time went on, when they finally showed at the end, I wasn't expecting to see it at all. I just thought that if you're going to showcase it, come out with something. To me, I just don't.
You mean
I don't know.
don't come
Like
out with a 7-year-old game on its 3rd generation?
Like, when you look at when Nintendo released the Switch, right? So they did that 3-minute trailer, right? That showcased the Switch. It showed what it was, brought up all these questions. But then when they actually showcased, it was like, okay, here it is, boom. If we would have walked away from that, not getting price points, not getting release dates, I think everybody would have lost their minds. I appreciate that they're showing the games.
Well, it was also 2 months away from release at that point.
Well, I know that, Jesse, but I'm just saying the point is well, we're only 6 months away from release in theory when you think about it. Like, we're halfway there. So when are they going to announce price point and release date? I don't know. I just felt.
I think
weird.
Microsoft and Sony are still playing chicken with each other on that point.
I think
Well, they
they
totally
are,
are.
too. I think they are too. Yeah. But that aside, that part of it aside, like, there was a couple of games that I was like, okay, this looks kind of cool. I am a fan of the console. I think the console looks kind of cool. I don't know, aesthetically, I think me personally, I think it's more pleasing than the Xbox when it comes to looks. Like, I would rather have that on my shelf than an Xbox. That's just me personally. But the other thing too is, like, we don't know how powerful this thing is. We don't know what it's going to put out, what it's going to do. Like, they kept a lot of stuff close to the vest with this. So I don't, Sony fans are probably ecstatic, and I think Sony fans, rightfully so, should be very happy because they're getting something across the board. But I just know that if that was my home team and that's what I went into the event and I walked away with more questions than I had answers, I think I'd probably be a little bit upset about it.
Yeah, cool. Tim, what did you think of it?
So I've been a dual console guy for a while. Especially, I even wrote a blog about this several years ago. I actually did a couple.
Can you find that on the Nintendo Dad's blog?
No, this is actually before I did. This was a long time ago. This is the Wii U days before I found you guys. So I wrote a blog on it about my disappointment with Nintendo and their games not growing with their audience. And that's why I wanted to play PlayStation. And then I kind of grew further and was like, okay, this is why people have multiple consoles, because you can have the family-friendly games with a few, older games in with Nintendo. And then you have your PlayStation where you have a whole different type of genre. So that's why I became two console kind of guy with that. So I'm excited about what I saw today as a PlayStation fan. What's coming up next in the pipeline? What am I going to be trying to save my money for next? And what they announced, I did not think they were going to show the console either or give price. And they didn't give a price, but they did show the console. I am most intrigued by the fact that they released two consoles, digital and disc versions. So I'm intrigued by that and intrigued on where that's going to go. Because I don't think what Microsoft did towards the end was enough to see where that's going to go when Microsoft brought out their digital-only device. But I like that. There were several games I was interested in. I won't go through the whole list, but there were several that caught my eye that I liked. Because I guess I am a Sony pony, I guess, if you will, or fanboy, PlayStation fanboy, which is why I listened to Nintendo PlayStation when you guys did that, and you miss it.
I don't know why. Why is this guy on this show?
But yeah,
you need to vet these co-hosts a little bit better.
I need to vet my guests too.
But seriously, I mean, it's like I said, there's games on here that I liked, but I did notice one thing, and I think Joe and Kyle mentioned it too, because I watched it with them when they were doing their live thing, is that looked like Sony was trying to get in on the family side of things with some of their games.
I felt that as well.
So I thought that was kind of interesting with with the whole, it seemed like, hey, PlayStation's going to be doing their thing over here, and then Microsoft's going to do their thing over here, Nintendo over here. But then here comes Sony, like, hey, we got some family friendly games that we're going to show you here.
That's the one thing I will say that I felt different about was for a while there, and I've always said this about Sony stuff, is it's all the same. It's third person, story driven, flashy graphics. Every game is basically the same. You just flip the characters, move the characters in, change the storyline. That's what Sony is. This time I walked away and was like, they're trying some different stuff here, and with Sackboy game and the Astro Robot or whatever, and like that type of stuff I started seeing. I was like, okay, this is a different type of presentation than I would have thought I would expect from them.
Yeah, they definitely showed a lot of things that would touch different audiences there, so which I thought was impressive. Like you said, it wasn't just all run and gun and
yeah,
FPS this, FPS that, so it was good.
Yeah. Jesse, what about you?
In whole, I also was kind of meh on everything. I did like the Spider-Man sequel. That one looks exciting. Ratchet and Clank looks cool, and I'm kind of wondering where they're at. What to do with that the female, whatever that race is. I don't. But the problem is, I played a lot of these games, but I've never finished one because something always happens where I just kind of get sick of playing it. So like this. So nothing here is enticing me. Even the Sackboy game, it's like, okay, it reminds me a lot of Little Big Planet, which reminds me of Mario Maker, which has put a sour taste in my mouth. So this one may not even have any user-generated content in it. I don't know. But just, the first thing they showed was isometric platforming. I'm like, oh, I sent a tweet, said, what can go wrong? Because that generally doesn't work well for me. And, I've said it before in the show, like when trying to play first-person shooters and other games with a lot of activity, that I will get physically nauseous.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
I had that feeling about 3/4 through the show. I was like, this needs to end soon. I am going to get sick. I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah.
People say I think I am, but I am not.
I'm going to be really honest with you. I think this was a hot presentation. You know what I mean? Like, I thought it was really good. I am not. You guys know I'm one console. That's the way I live, right? That's the pure blood. You know what I'm saying? That's running the right way. But I'm going to be honest. I came at this PlayStation conference. I was like, that is good. I like what is going on there. I thought they did a great job with pacing. I thought they did a great job with the trailers that they showed. There was I went through. It was very much so that doesn't interest me. That interests me. That doesn't interest me. Oh, that's got my attention, right? I got a list here of just quick games that caught my attention. Of course, I would say Spider-Man was on there, right? Horizon Zero Dawn, Deathloop, Returnal, The Devil Inside. Right? There's just a ton of games that I was like, wow, does that look like that looks good? I thought they did a great job. They positioned it, and again, we talk about that idea of communicating before to set expectations. They said, these are the games you're going to be playing. So if you thought that they were going to show you price, box, date, wrong. These are the games you are going to be playing. Stop there, right? Stop hyperventilating or thinking more, which we all do, right? And if they show you more, bonus. And I think if you go to that, they did their job really well. And I think then showing the console at the end, I thought was a great strategy. Boom, there it was. Show the box. Now the unknowns, to your point, Bobby, price and date. Right? And they're going to hold on both.
But what's under the hood?
Yeah, we'll get that information too, right? I think they did that technical talk that was supposed to be a GDC a while ago, and people wanted to just fall asleep.
Yeah.
Right? This was let's not be sleepy, let's be sexy. And I think that's what they did here really, really well. And you can't hear me is what I'm getting from everyone doing this.
Jesse was talking.
I'm on mute apparently because yeah, that GDC thing. I was interested in that, as a developer, but as a player, I don't care. Yeah. But I think Restream just died on us. I don't know if we're live
But my-
anywhere,
but
but I'm
for
still
me-
recording.
But when I look at the two, right? So there's 3 consoles in play. I have Nintendo. I'm going to be a Nintendo gamer all day long.
Yeah.
I have an Xbox and a PlayStation as well, right? Last generation, I jumped on PlayStation very early. Didn't get to Xbox till later on. Going into this one, I'm sorry, I don't have $1,000, $1,200 to
Yep.
shell out for 2 consoles out the gates. So when I look at the 2 companies and I go, where's more bang for the buck? Sorry, Xbox has it day in, day out. That Game Pass is unbelievable, and it's an unbelievable value for somebody that is going to buy a second console, that's going to get this other thing. And, like, yes, that's why I feel like pricing matters at this point. There are a couple people in the chat were like, it don't matter, people are going to buy it. Yeah, what happened to PS3? That thing came out way too high, and people didn't. I think if they want to beat Xbox, punch them in the mouth with a price point that is going to be attractive and get people on board. But I don't think they have the ability to do that. I don't think that it's going to be an attractive price point. I think they're going to price themselves out of the market is what's going to happen. And it's going to come down to, am I going to pay $600 and then buy games individually? Or am I going to pay $600 and get a boatload of games for free month in, month out? Sorry, it's Xbox.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there, Bobby.
Yeah.
Right? I what I'm saying is I think they did a great job showing up. I think they did a great value proposition. But you are 100% right. When it comes down to whatever date that is in holiday November, and you've got, gamer Joe or Jane or whoever standing in front at EB Games, and you've got PlayStation over here, and you've got the new Xbox here, and you got cash in your pocket, what's it going to be? It's going to be a hard sell, right? And I think that your commentary, especially around Game Pass, is absolutely right. And we've talked about that before, but I believe that what Xbox is doing is revolutionary, right? I believe that is pushing stuff. I believe Game Pass, I believe xCloud, they are pushing their services in a different way, where really what we saw here, right? So again, if you're thinking Xbox pushes services, what we saw the story today was PlayStation saying, we push hardware. Right, and that was a story, and that's what they came out today to show. Was like, look at all of this sexy ray tracing, and
today was we push games. Today was not we push hardware, because that's not, to me. That's, if you want to say we push hardware, then you come out and go, this is what this thing's going to be and what it can do, and this is the price. But they didn't do that.
But they did that differently. They said, here are the creators with the hardware creating the story that they're doing because of the technology, because of ray tracing, because of blah blah blah, like all that jazz they put in there, but that PR spin. That is what I mean by hardware is they're giving them the tools to make these incredible stories and games, right? And I think that I think that for a while, really, what Sony has tried to do is kind of be the higher tier, if you would, for the gamers, right? But I think they did a compelling job coming out and telling them, here's man, there were some awesome looking games. Right? There were some awesome looking games that I'd be like, man, that looks great. It will be a very interesting bloodbath between Sony and Microsoft to see who comes out. And it's going to be interesting. Bobby talked about this a couple moments ago. Who's going to blink first? Who's going to say, here's what the price is?
Yeah. And like what Bobby was saying, it's going to come down to those two elements on both sides. Yeah. Is it going to be Microsoft and their Game Pass and the price of that hardware versus Sony's price of their hardware and the games they provide? Because they're not really doing the services thing yet. Yeah, they're working on it, but and I think it was brought up on Twitter somewhere that, hey, what's the price is going to be and all that kind of stuff. And I mentioned that Sony's going to have to price it right with the software because they can't compete with Game Pass. Mm-hmm. But it's also going to be with depends on the gamer, what they're looking for. Do they mind waiting for it? Because there's some games that Microsoft's going to have that'll be day and date with Game Pass, and some that are not. That you'll go back to play old library stuff. And we even have somebody in our community who just got an Xbox, who was happy to get that. They said they probably won't buy a game in their life because they just for that device, they're just going to do Game Pass. Yep. With that cyber, punk device they got. And
well, the other thing too is how many of those games that they showed are truly exclusive to Sony. That's the other caveat. Yep. Like,
they're
the
showing we learned from Xbox, right?
Yeah, we learned that from Xbox. But like, you have this trailer with Zion, and he's talking about the new 2K game. That's not exclusive to Sony. Like, and will it look better on Xbox? Well, if there's more power under the hood, I can promise you it's going to look a lot better on Xbox. And that's from my understanding, that's the way it's leaning. I think that Xbox learned a valuable lesson with the launch of the Xbox One, and in that lesson was people want power, and
Bobby,
this is what we're going to give them.
Bobby, there's a difference between what I saw in Xbox's presentation in their games, where eventually the companies that said these are the games that come in Xbox, we saw that they're coming to PlayStation. There was few that I saw in there. I was like, oh, these are cool. They're coming to Xbox, and then I found out they're going to be on PlayStation anyway. So I guess I don't need to buy an Xbox. Then the games that I'm interested in all say they're PlayStation 5 console exclusives, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games right there that are PlayStation 5 exclusives that I did not see 6 or so many for Xbox yet. I know they're developing.
They still have a lot.
I know there's still a lot to come, and again, that's going to be because Xbox is doing Game Pass. Yeah, that's going to be their thing. Yeah. So,
I mean, for me as a Nintendo fan, let's be honest. For me as a Nintendo fan, there's only one game that makes me even push towards Sony, and that's Last of Us 2. And that's probably the only thing that'll make me buy a PS5. And if they come out with a new a Batman Arkham game. That's the only reason I bought a PS4 was because of Batman Arkham. So if they come out with a new Arkham game, they come out with, if they would have showed Arkham today on the PS5, I probably would have been like, okay, I'm in. But that's because for me, I go, what games can I not get on the Switch that I have to have?
Yeah.
And that's where it boils down to.
So I did kind of like the reverse engineering. Like I'm watching this and I was like, yeah, that's definitely not. Nope. Oh, wait a second. Who's that developed by? Oh, that might come to the Switch. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a game or two in there. I was like, that doesn't look like it's pushing high fidelity. Yeah. Looks like that could come over here. We can see what happens. But I do think it's very interesting, and I think it's a great example of just, we've got two, Microsoft and Xbox right now are like, let's go, son, right? Who's going to blink? And like Nintendo's like, we're putting an ARMS character in Smash. Right? Like totally not even part of the conversation, but yet still killing it, right? Yeah. In relation to sales and contents being put out. I think it's going to be fascinating. If you're a Sony fan, I really hope that you got what you wanted today and got the answers that you wanted. And again, I'm not a big fan of like, this console sucks or this company's horrible. I'm a bigger fan of like that idea of like, if we're all good to each other and we all play together, there's good things for all of us, right? Yeah. Like competition is healthy for the market, right? So yeah, let's see what Xbox and PlayStation do. Let's have that conversation, right? And we can obviously see, we've seen more and more like multiple platform games be on various platforms. We're seeing more cross-play. We're seeing more cross-saving, right? Those barriers are starting to fall down a little bit more, and I think it's such a great time to be a gamer and to watch what's being pushed, right? So I don't know.
So let's ask the real question here. Let's rally it back to Nintendo. After watching today's event, are you nervous as a Nintendo fan of if Nintendo doesn't step it up with a Pro edition of Switch in the next year, they're going to get left behind?
In terms of price, they announced the two SKUs, digital only, and then the normal one. Trying to speculate what the prices might be would then also dictate how nervous Nintendo might be. I mean, in terms of like right now,